All right. So I got my good friend and roommate Chris.
Hi guys.
So I'm gonna try and for our portfolio, our first assignment, I'm gonna try and explain to him what we have in Phaedrus by Plato. Okay. So I don't know. This is a weird story. Real quick. So like, what would be your definition of love?
That's pretty philosophical for a first question. My definition of love is when you're willing to do just about anything, even if it puts yourself in harm's way, to do something for someone.
Okay.
To completely, not even think of yourself and think of them before yourself at all times.
All right. So what if that one thing would be sex?
Well, I'm not exactly an expert in that area, but I hadn't really thought about that actually.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean by what if that one thing is sex? What do you mean by that?
Like, so like in Phaedrus, kind of like the whole question in pretty much in the first half of the book, like specifically, a lot of the first half is about kind of what is love, right? In a way, and it's also so for you, since you say that love would be giving your all to someone, right?
Right.
Most would consider sex under that. So if you do those kind of sexual favors for someone else, does that mean you love them? So like, do you have sex with someone that you love, or is it something you can do as a favor?
Well, I mean, I think both. I think if you are in love with someone, the sex could come along with that. But I feel like if you do love someone, even if it's just for a favor, you're more probably apt to do that.
So let's say it was more something like a girl helps you with you're just like Russian. Okay, you suck at Russian.
I do suck at Russian.
So let's say this girl speaks Russian and she's just willing to help you. So as your thanks to her, would you give her sexual favors as kind of like in return? You don't love her, but it's a favor.
I mean, I feel like as a man I should say yes, but I feel like as myself I feel like I'd probably like to get to know her, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me like take it real quick to like a blast into the past, right? So
Gotcha.
if you look back into like ancient Greece, homosexuality, right? If you look at ancient art and sometimes poetry, homosexuality was not an uncommon thing. It was
very
actually
prevalent.
a common thing, mostly in the upper class. And sometimes people even suggested that it might be common as kind of like what I described to you as a favor, as a kind of a wise man educating a younger man, and as a favor he would repay him in sex.
Right.
Or if it's not like that, sometimes it would also be that the older man, like an older man, would have a beloved. So he's the lover would be an older man, and his beloved would be a younger man, and they would engage in sex. That was a normal thing. Okay, so the question in the book, kind of like the debate, was that there was kind of a public speaker saying that if you are to give sexual favors to someone, you should give it to someone that does not love you. So that's something you agree with, kind of like.
So they're taking the feelings and emotions completely out of the matter.
That was their argument. They're saying that if you give someone sex that does not love you, it's completely unattached. There's no strings attached. It's kind of like it's almost like something like this is strictly business. Like sex, you do what you're gonna do. You're done and you leave, and there's no emotions attached. It was just the act, and that's it. And then commonly the argument is, from what it looks like, because it's also kind of confusing to understand, is between two men, often an older man and a younger man.
Right.
So is that something that you would agree with? Is that like, do you think that if you were to give love to someone, it should be to someone that you do, like, I mean by love I mean like sexual favors.
Okay.
So should you give it to someone that loves you, or is it better to give it to someone that does not?
That's a tough question. Because if you're trying to keep it strictly business, then yeah, it should be someone who's not. But I mean, that's a hard question to ask in today's age because it's such a different time, you know. I mean, that's tough, yeah.
Right? Because also part of their argument was also that like friends who are not lovers, you know, kind of just like if you were to run in, I mean, I'm gonna use it obviously like in today's terms because homosexuality isn't as prevalent, and I mean, I guess
it's as prevalent.
I mean, this is prevalent, but I think it's viewed in a different light, kind of way.
Yeah.
So today, if you were to get, if it was a guy and a girl, and they're just friends, and they do have sex, and they're not lovers, they're just kind of just two friends, kind of like just doing it for fun, I guess you could say.
Friends with benefits.
Pretty much, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Versus if they're lovers, and you have kind of an asymmetrical relationship where one will feel more for the other, and they won't get that feeling back. So if you look at it in that perspective, would it make sense to even not even just strictly business, but I mean just in general?
Yeah, I understand the question. I think that it's unhealthy in a relationship for one person to feel more than the other.
Yeah.
So and especially if you bring sex into that, because then it brings two completely different aspects. You know, two completely different sides viewing something, you know, that one might view as very sacred and one might view as very casual. Yeah. And that creates kind of a disconnect. It's like oil and water. It doesn't work. But if you're on the same page and you're just friends, I feel like that could be okay. Like there are a lot of physical benefits to sex. You tend to be in a better mood. You know, you get to release some of the negativity. You know, it just seems to brighten your day. You know, outside of the obvious reasons. But
yeah. So also, like I said, this was referring to two men. It wasn't really like kind of the traditional relationship of a man and a woman. But this was a speech, and today, because I mean, like from what I can tell, like, you're kind of having trouble with the questions, right? It's because it's such a counterintuitive kind of like
I have to
like suggestion because that's today. And I'm sure even back then, maybe not even back then, but it would be that, you know, you save yourself for marriage. So it's kind of counter. So it would, that would kind of suggest that you are giving these sexual favors to someone that you love. That's what it makes sense. You love someone.
You're holding it out for the one that earned it.
Yeah, or maybe if it's not even to hold it out to one person, but like you give the love, like you are in love, so you make love. Right? It's not kind of like I'm bored, let's do it.
Right.
So it would make sense to give the sexual favors to someone that you do love. But this is so counterintuitive, right? So it just doesn't make sense.
It kind of creates like a catch-22 because if you said like if they are on, there's a whole lot of different dynamics into this because if we have to question ourselves, you know, like I'm sure we view sex today as something completely different than they viewed it because if they're viewing it as a transaction, as a form of almost a payment. Then
it could have sometimes been viewed as that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think maybe they had a more casual, I guess, condition toward it.
I mean, you also got to think about it like before women were not considered as equals. So it was
also the Greeks were very misogynistic.
It was also very common that a man and a woman, you know, and they would have their family, and out in public there would be prostitutes where the man could go have sex and no strings attached.
Right.
And his wife really pretty much had no say, no right, no. I mean, that's the way it was. The man, if he wanted just something that his wife couldn't give him, he would go to a prostitute. That was just like the normal thing.
Yeah.
So that's also, I mean, kind of the way they viewed it. Because now today, the prostitution, that's not. And
I think
what's it called? Like when you're cheating, to be adultery.
Adulterous, yeah.
Like that's not an okay thing today, but it was an okay thing back then. And even these men that would have their their younger lovers were often married too. They had their wives and their kids, but they would still engage in this homosexual kind of relationships. So, I mean, and they weren't. And the fact that they were not in love. So, kind of the big question still is, is the argument that the speaker was making that you should give sex not to someone who loves you, but to someone who does not? I mean, is that?
I think
there were lots. Another thing that he was mentioning was that if he who is not in love has a clear head, clear straight head, but that he who is in love is kind of. I mean, you kind of say like his mind is kind of clouded by
Love is
by the
blindness.
lust. Yeah, like that. Yeah, like that saying that love, because love is lust.
Yeah.
Kind of love like blinds you.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's like a lot of different ways. Like, if you are in love, and obviously you give them the love, but should you only give it to that person, or is it okay to, or even better to give it to a friend who you have absolutely no love interest with? It's just kind of more of I'm bored. Let's do it.
Well, I think today we have and I know this is kind of crazy to think about, but based on that, I think we have looser morals, maybe. Or
Maybe.
they had looser morals because, I mean, typically, unless we're talking about, people who are bisexual or people who are, who are into crazy things like with dogs or whatever. But I tend to think that we stick to one or the other, and it's not like, my wife isn't doing this, I'm going to go help out this kid, and in return I expect sex. I think, we have a more rigid structure, and we view sex as more emotional rather than physical.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so now that you say that, kind of could also lead to like another question is, in this another speech, he was kind of referring to how like our souls is like a chariot, right? And he kind of said how the gods, they have their chariot with their two horses, and their two horses are pretty much perfect. Their two horses behave and they go where they're supposed to go. Our soul, our chariot inside has two horses. One horse is well behaved and well tamed. The other one is not. Kind of like Freud's id and ego, right? How like you have one part of you kind of telling you that this is the way to do it, like this is the right way, and then another part of you kind of like wanting to stray away, So I guess if you could also look at it like that, for them, it would be the right. I mean, of course, we weren't there at that time, so we don't know how they think. But maybe even for them, the right way would be to stay with your wife, and that little part that pulls you, that you kind of need that excitement and the temptation, the misbehaved horse pulls you. So you think that could also be kind of like a factor, like, or like maybe even an excuse, and to kind of fulfill that, you don't do it with someone you love. So example like their wife, but with someone you do not, such as a younger man.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, I mean, I think if they live with the mindset that one part of their soul is always going to want the temptation, then it's more acceptable that they're gonna start doing the things that are maybe considered more outlandish.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
It does. And I don't know, some of the things that I was kind of like reading, and something I thought was like another simple question was, maybe they mentioned how, kind of implied how when you have sex, it kind of gives you like this sense, kind of like victory, like
right, power.
Yeah, like power, like like a good feeling, like yeah, you feel kind of.
It's a nice pat on the back.
Yeah. So could also be that maybe even sex is kind of like addictive.
Oh,
like
very much so.
So for them, it would be okay to fulfill it with another man that they do not love.
I mean, if the culture allowed for it, and I think based on what we've read here, the culture did very much allow for that. Had some wiggle room, so to speak.
Yeah, it did. I don't know. So it was a tough question.
Yeah, like, these were very thought provoking.
The reading was very, very philosophical, very question, because like I don't even know. Like sometimes it would make sense, have sex with someone that you do not love,
right?
It's kind of like a casual, like relief of desire, I guess you could say.
It's
like
therapeutic.
ways you could even look at it is maybe that, like let's say, I mean, this could bring like a whole other topic that I even brought up in high school, and I made a lot of girls mad, and my teacher, saying that prostitution should be legalized. Kind of on the same concept. You can go and have sex with someone you do not love to relieve that desire, instead of, I mean, maybe that could even potentially like lower the rape, the cases of rape.
I mean, I see both sides to that argument. I mean, on one end, if someone legitimately wants to, be a prostitute, then, I mean, maybe. I think the main problem with prostitution is that a lot of people are forced into it, and it's, human trafficking thing. But I mean, if we equate it to something like stripping is completely legal, and that's essentially selling your body for money.
Or pornography.
Pornography as
The
well.
only difference is that you're in front of a camera.
Exactly, and distributed on the internet or tapes or whatever.
Yeah. So looking at this situation of, back to giving your love, your sexual favors to someone you do not love. If we were to apply it now, like, and in the form, like, let's say prostitution, would it fit? Like, would that be? So does it make sense? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to look at it back in our perspective, because for them, like, homosexuality, it wasn't seen as like a sin, how it is now, and there's so many people saying it's a sin.
Yeah.
Or there was back in that time, it was kind of like a normal, like, all right, this is just something that happens. And
it wasn't binary. Today it's kind of binary. You either have the people who completely agree with it or the people who completely disagree with it, and they were more like a mixed bag. Like, they were like, yeah, it's it's okay every once in a while, or it's okay to do it, with justification.
So this is definitely. It's
a good talk. Good talk, that's for sure.
Yeah, and this is kind of long now, so thank you, Chris, for
No
helping
problem.
me out.
Anytime.
So see, this is my roommate, Chris. He didn't. I didn't tell him anything about the book. He didn't read it. This was kind of spur of, like, Chris, come help me out real quick. We got to do this, and I thought this would be a clever way, Professor. So I hope this is what you're looking for.
All right, see you, Doctor.
And it was it was an interesting conversation, kind of like how it happened in class. But there you go, portfolio number 1 done. I hope this is the right way. I'll see you soon.